Hey kids, I'm back. I've been hanging out via internet with my buddy James, and he is a fellow HellBender nut. And I think it's a new build for you, brother, if I remember right. And I asked him, I sent him a message and I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm slamming my HellBender." I'm like, we got to do that. And I talked about this earlier. This is not Zebra's HellBender. This one's mine, okay? Zebras were leaving stock. And dude, if you're watching this and it works out cool and you want me to do it to yours, let me know and I'll be happy to do it because I have a pretty good idea in mind and I think it'll work. This is your typical HellBender. I got two of them here. These are mine. Zebras is over here. And you guys, if you've watched any of my movies, you've seen that I say, "Oh man, look at the space in there. Forget about it. You got a ton of fucking space in that thing." So one of the things I wanted to do is there's so much space, in fact, that I wanted to cut these down and do what we call slamming, okay? And slam this top down and make this thing like a fucking peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? But my problem was this dude here. So James, my brother James that I've been talking to, he's going to use, I believe, a TPU camera holder, all right, instead of this aluminized one. And he did buy one of these aluminum ones, but he's going to try it with a TPU first because he's smarter than me. I'm going to actually hack my aluminum one on this one down here because my top plate's already broke on this one. So I'm just going to probably trim that off to make it match a little bit. And it's already cracked up, so if I fuck it up, fine, whatever. But here's my idea. What I'm thinking of doing, if you think about how, hang on. Shit. Oh, man. Anyway. Sorry, I couldn't find one fast enough. Not want to make you guys wait. A TPU camera holder usually is like you got a little bit of a base and a ring, okay, and it holds your camera. So that's what he's going to use, which makes a lot more sense. And I think he's going to, where this is, he's going to use the other posts that come with the kit, and he's going to cut all the posts. I'm going to do it different because if you think about it, the TPU camera is only mounted to the bottom of the frame with 2 bolts anyway. So what I'm thinking of doing is cutting this bitch off up here, bam and bam, and then, you know, I'm going to do some measurements, obviously, get rid of this thing here, and make some measurements and cut this. And I'm thinking we're going to measure our space. Don't have to worry about the camera because that camera has a cutout. I'm thinking about 135, or, yeah, no, I'm sorry. Huh. Yeah, been drinking. That's new, right? 15 mil, 12 mil. I can make it fit with 15. So cut these pigs down. I'm going to mark them all, and I'm going to cut these off at the 15 mil mark, unless that goes down too far. I can't go past that bolt. So, yeah. Man, looks like I'm going to cut that pig right down to that bolt. Just a little bit above it. And then I'm going to measure these out and then make these the rest. And we're going to slam this pig. So this is, and I'll show you before and after because this is technically the before. This is stock. And this is going to be the after. So, bam, give me 30 seconds. And if I don't cut my finger off with my Dremel tool, I'll be right back. Hang on. Bam and slam. Done. Check it out, kids. The slammed, what I'm going to call the crab mod for the HellBender. Reason being, I don't think it's going to pick it up in person, but I'm sorry, on the camera, but it actually looks like a horseshoe crab or something because it's so squished down. It's fucking badass. Now, here's my other HellBender. This is the V1. Look at all that room in there. Huge. Huge and thick, right? Look at it compared to this guy. Bam! That is bad to the bone. Okay, let's take some measurements here. Inside of a stock HellBender, without the crab mod, 35 millimeters. And I did the standoffs on this at 20, I believe. Yep, pretty close anyway. 1970. Okay, so very, very cool, but we can weigh them too. They should be pretty much identical birds. They're both running all-in-one ESCs. They're both running similar flight controllers. This has the DYS like Zebras, and this one has an Omnibus F3. But all in all, it should be really close to the weight. So let's see what we came down to, or up. I couldn't have come up. Scale tells no lies. 295. And we got 278. This one has a little bit heavier motors on it. Open bell motors, closed bell motors. There's your difference. So these are pretty much the same. Now, there's a couple reasons. Here's what I had to do. I had to take standoffs. I had to change the standoffs. Standard standoffs on the HellBender are these guys. And let's see, get rid of this out of the way. Grab my... Fucking kidding me right now? Anyhow, I lost my my scale. We'll just use this one. Standard's 35. I put in 20s. Now, you don't have to necessarily, there it is. Now, you don't have to necessarily put them in. You can cut them yourself. If you have, and they make smaller versions of this. This is a tube cutter. What you can do is you can measure out 20 mil to that wheel. Okay? So basically, this is also a 35. 35 and 20 are the standards for those. And I'm not going to measure it, but let's just pretend I did. Let's measure it. And I would use a smaller tube cutter than this. And I'm just doing this for example. Grab myself a pliers, tighten that up, and do this. Okay? Very simple. Give another torque. And you might want to, there we go. Put some tape over your standoff so you don't mar it up if you want to get fancy about it. And then you will have to take a bolt and thread it through. And you don't really have to tap it. You can just take your Dremel tool, get rid of that little bit of schmutz in there, and then just kind of force a screw through there, because this is aluminum, and that'll thread in just fine. That does work. I actually was lucky enough just to have a couple 20s, so I didn't have to mod that. This one, if I do the same, I'll probably cut those with a Dremel. The way you cut it with the Dremel, guys, let me give you a really, really good tip with this. Where's my bolts? Take some long M3s, thread them in past where you're going to cut, okay? And then measure off your 20 mil. Let's say we're going to cut that amount. Then take a cutting wheel on your Dremel and go ahead and cut all the way around it into the bolt. You don't have to cut all the way through it, but if you just nick the bolt's kind of your measurement, and then take it out. In industry, we call that a mandrel. Whenever you bend tubing or cut it, shear it, things like that, you want to put a mandrel inside of it to keep the roundness. If you don't, bad things will happen. So that is a pretty good trick. I would do that. So it's probably easier just to hop on Amazon or Banggood and order a bunch of 20s. The other thing I also did was I measured out and cut the aluminum, and you can see I did a half-ass job. And actually, this was after the fact. When I cut it, it looked perfect, but then I used my Dremel tool. I cut these down to about 21 millimeters instead of 20. And the reason I did that, and notice there's no bolts in there. The reason I did that was 4 bolts in the top of this is plenty to hold it down. I wanted this to angle up just a touch to put tension on it. I didn't want there to be a gap in between the carbon fiber and the camera holder because I didn't want it flapping and vibrating and causing jello in the camera. Make sure of that. So this is basically a tension fit right here. There's no bolts holding it in, but if you think about it, there used to be 2 bolts here and there's 2 bolts there. If you think about it, if you're using a hinge style, like for a run cam, or you're using a TPU, you're still just using 2 screws on the bottom anyway. So those other 2 screws up top here really weren't needed anyhow, so I got my 2 M3s in the bottom. This thing is stupid tight, man. I mean, forget about it. You got the aluminum in here, that fucker ain't going anywhere. A couple things to consider before you do this. One, you have to get creative. You better have a pretty small stack. I don't think it's worth doing this mod if you don't go down to at least 20. You could theoretically maybe go down a little bit lower, but you have to think of your camera angle. And all you guys can be creative and do this your own way. But your camera angle, in my case, I couldn't go down much farther than that, okay? But if you're using a TPU and you're just centered in the set, TPU usually are just flat with a hinge with a ring. If you use something like that and then open up the top like I did, you can probably slam this bitch all the way down. I actually like it at 20 mil. I think it looks really good compared to the stock. Stock is like, bam, put a family of 5.5 fucker, bam, nice and tight. So do take care and think about that. Maybe do a little bit of dry fit and guesstimate first. It does chop down on the weight. The other thing is it's going to be stronger. Think of a pillar. The higher a pillar is, the less strong it is. The shorter a pillar is, the more strong it is. So in theory, it's negligible. Don't get me wrong. You've got a little bit stronger on the top. Okay. The other thing is your flying vortex. So when you're going forward motion, this is acting like a scoop and you're getting air in through here. This one's going to block a little bit more air and keep everything a little bit nicer for you. Is it worth doing? I think so. I think this is a lot of added weight. Not a lot of added weight, but a lot of wasted space. I think it looks funky, especially in Zebra's build. I only have one board in there. And it's like, it just looks kind of funny. I mean, I think it's an awesome bird, awesome frame. I love HellBenders. But I like the crab mod. I think it's nice and tight and slammed. JJ's chop shop, man. One thing I did do, I opened up the top. And my top was already cracked, mind you, so I didn't really care. If you look at this one, this is what it used to look like, only not as many holes. This is a V1, version 1. But it looked like that. But mine was already cracked right here and broke right over here. So what I did is I took my Dremel, I rounded it out. I did not get it very symmetrical because I did it all by eye. My next HellBender, I'll probably make this a little bit more professional looking, because right there I actually used my grinder. I was using a sand drum, and I nicked the aluminum and got it all futzy, you know, but it's okay. Absolutely love this slammed idea. The other thing you have to think about too, if you don't have a super short stack, like I got an all-in-one ESC in here, and with my T-Motor Air 40s, so I'm running an all-in-one ESC and my Omnibus in there, and I still have my stack higher than it needs to be. I could squish that pretty easily, but I couldn't be bothered. The one thing considered that I had to do, I had to rethink where my VTX was going to go, and I had to rethink where my receiver was going to go, because I just did not have enough room in there now. You know, you go from having an RV to a fucking Pinot, right? So I ended up putting in... I haven't buttoned this up yet. I'm going to put a cover over that. But I have my receiver, my radio receiver right there on the bottom of my ESC. And then my VTX I modded, and I put a pigtail on it. I don't know if you can see that black wire right there going up. That black wire is going all the way to the front, and I actually have my VTX mounted right under there. Underneath the camera, technically. It's under the ass end of the camera. So you might have to rethink how you do things. The other real quick trick that I do, how I do straps on HellBenders. You're thinking, I don't know how to do a fucking strap, dude. That's stupid. Check it out. Here's a conventional strap. Got your little buckle, everything else. I cut it straight across there and straight across there, so it leaves a little 90-degree angle, okay? Then I slide it through the strap hole and lock it in. See, that bar keeps that locked in. You no longer need a buckle. These buckles break. At least I break them all the time, because usually people have this strapped around to the bottom of their battery, right? Kind of like that. And you smack on it, you break those buckles. So I just cut the fucker off. And I slide it through like that, and it acts like a through bar. And then I slide the other end up through here. Then I take a junky ass battery that I use for testing, slide it in there. I usually have my Sherlock tape on the bottom. Go like that, bam. That's all you need. Even though it's looking kind of funky right there, especially if you have the Sherlock tape, forget about it. That's how I do every bird I can. I actually try to do my straps this way. You can use a shorter strap, it's less weight, and it's less prone to break, believe it or not. So, especially the buckle, you know, that. So anyway, I'm very happy with my crab mod. Bam! If you guys have any questions, basically, and I also changed this so it's like the Zebra build. My props are going on the outside, spinning the opposite way around, so when I land in grass, it puts the schmutz here instead of here. and it's running beta plate 3.2 and anti-turtle mode and all that stuff. But as far as the build go, I absolutely love it. I think that's slamming. That is so fucking cool. So those of you that have Hellbenders or are getting them, I know a couple of my buddies are getting some to do some builds. Look into it. It's a pretty neat way to do it. So hope this helps you out. If you have any questions on how I did it and I missed anything, please let me know, and subscribe, kids. Bam. Have a great weekend. Talk soon. Bye.